The audience is already there. It was such a huge challenge. And, to have all those crazy feelings of insecurity and not to convey that to the orchestra, but do the exact opposite to let them know, okay, so we have this really huge challenge in front of us. We have this change that is happening instantly, and that's it. Just, I have to show them that they can really follow me and trust my leadership. Because if they don't, then immediately everything just collapses.
Welcome back to another episode of The Leader Within. Today, I'm excited to introduce Roit Feldenkreis. She's an Israeli international orchestra conductor and leadership expert based in Spain. After 2 decades on the international stage, she founded BHZ Group to bring the principles of orchestral leadership to the business world. Today, she works with executives and companies worldwide, offering one-on-one performance coaching, keynote speaking, and immersive orchestral workshops that transforms how leaders communicate, align teams, and perform under pressure. Given her experience, I'm excited to have her share her insights with you. Well, welcome, Roit. Can you share with us a story or an epiphany that influenced you to translate your learnings as a leader on the stage to leaders in corporate world?
For sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Angela. I'm so happy to be here. I think one epiphany was when I was just starting out. I had a concert in South America, and we were really we were really preparing to go up on the stage. It was like, I don't know, 30 minutes before the beginning of the concert. And I was planning to do the entire concert by heart. So I was really like stressed about that because, it's such like a mental challenge. And in that instant, someone knocked on the door of my dressing room and they said, listen, Maestra, listen, we have a problem. Our trombone players, they thought the order was different, so they have not arrived yet. They're planning to play in the second part of the concert, and they didn't know they should be there like at the beginning. So they're not here. What can we do? And we can't perform the piece intended without the trombones, obviously. So I was like, okay, no, this is insane. This is not going to happen to me right now. But I told them, okay, so the only thing that we can do is change the order. Change the order of the pieces. And so we decided to really make a huge difference in the program and let the players know instantly. And for them, it was difficult, but for me, it was mind blowing because my entire brain was set up this way, to do these works by this specific order. And by changing that, I felt so insecure. I felt so unsure of my leadership skills because I, inherently had to lead right now, but I felt so off. So I really had to, in those 15 minutes before, in the backstage when you're preparing, the players come up to you and say, break a leg, whatever, things like that. And, Maestra, are you sure we can do this piece instead of that one? Everyone was really stressed out. And I thought to myself, okay, so listen, you just have to really get you know, your things together. Just get it right because you have one shot, just like one shot to get it exactly right. And you can't show the players that you're so stressed because they know you're doing this by heart. You're not going to bring now the scores and change. The audience is already there. I can't put anything on stage right now. So for me, it was such a huge challenge. And to have all those crazy feelings of insecurity and not to convey that to the orchestra, but do the exact opposite to let them know, okay, so we have this really huge challenge in front of us. We have this change that is happening instantly, and that's it. Just, I have to show them that they can really follow me and really trust my leadership. Because if they don't, then immediately everything just collapses.
I can only imagine what that pressure would have been like, especially like you said, it's a one-shot attempt, right? And
Yeah.
so how did you effectively lead the leader within so that you can manage everything else around you?
Wow. I mean, I think that is the question that I constantly ask myself every single concert, that part of me that has to really shine through. What I felt was, okay, listen, this is something that you've been working towards to, your entire life. This is something that you really, really want. You have to basically look really, really deep inside yourself and gather all those strengths and all those key elements in your personality. I was really speaking to myself, literally. Like gather all these things, harness your mind, your heart, your passion, your excitement, and just jump and do it because it's actually something that you really, really want for yourself and for everyone else.
And you know what? Part of that that you mentioned that came to mind is like that leadership presence and your energy makes such a big difference, right? So when all this chaos and flurry is going around you, right? If you
Yeah,
match that energy, your group, your team is gonna be that way as well.
exactly.
And so I'm curious for you, going in, most of the time, these are strangers to you, right? It's not like
Oh,
some
for sure.
corporate leaders where you have the same group over and over every. So how do you instantly establish that common rapport when you don't have a lot of time?
I think this is one of the questions that we as conductors we struggle with, especially during the first few years, because basically when you reach an orchestra, when you come to perform with a new orchestra, you arrive to a setting where everyone knows each other. They're all playing together for several years, at least sometimes decades. And these are, high performers at the highest level. So they're both really experienced, really knowledgeable. They know each other pretty well, and they don't know you. They don't trust you. They have no way of knowing, if you're good, if you're not that great. So basically, we all have a huge challenge in really perceiving each other in those first few minutes. So the first rehearsal is like the make or break connection wise, experience. Because what happens is I have basically between 5 and 10 minutes to establish this trust. But it happens way before that because what happens is I have to do so much inner work on myself. And it has to do with two main things. One is to professionally be the best I can. So prepare the pieces in advance, know exactly what my interpretation is musically, do all those things, this process. And corporate leaders have the same thing, they have to prepare in advance. And then the second thing is how I show up. So how I show up means that before I step on the stage, before I greet the players, before anything like that, I have to really be present and to say to myself, okay, so this is going to be a fantastic experience. We're going to stay really, really connected. We're going to form this musical interpretation that will be a transformative experience for all of us. And with that in mind, I have to be so present that I constantly, every single second, I really embody that mindset. So for corporate leaders, in presentations, anything like that, board meetings, it's pretty much the same, I assume.
I appreciate you sharing that context, and I'm curious for your journey as well, right? It's probably a traditionally male dominant space. How did you, again, there's a like trickiness of establishing rapport with people who are high performer, they are experts in their own rights, and then on top of that, you are that minority coming in as well. Like, what did that kind of look like?
Oh wow, well, those first years were really horrible, It's a really like overwhelming experience. You come up on stage, you walk onto your podium and you see 60-year-old males looking at you like, oh, you're a 20-something-year-old female that's going to tell us what to do right now. It's, and there's in classical music and obviously in all fields, but in classical music, it's really, really apparent that, these players will play amazingly either way, they will play the notes written, but there's a huge difference between playing the notes, just for the sake of, like doing this checklist that we have to do and actually really playing through this inspiration and really following your lead. So this is a subtlety that at the beginning, you're not so sure if you get it right. But after some time, you see that, it's all about being truly a master in what you do. So if I have to prepare a Tchaikovsky symphony, for example, I have to be the best at it. I don't have any second chances ever. So I think for females, especially young female conductors and female executives, we don't have the privilege of getting anything wrong ever. So it is like that. I do think that nowadays we're more accustomed to really saying, oh, so we can try this approach or that approach. But, a few years back, we did not have that privilege.
I'm curious for like when executives come to you, like how do they discover that? Because you know how some folks are like very traditional and okay, I'm looking for someone who has had executive experience in a corporate space that is exactly like mine, not understanding the benefits of leveraging your creative background, but also your lived experience going through some of the things that you just shared. So yeah, like when do executives come to you and be like, you know what, I think you're the best fit, Roit?
Well, yeah, it is quite interesting because from my experience right now, the people that contact me either are really, really innovative, like the tech industry, things like that, or really, really conservative. Like in the middle, I do have some clients, but it's interesting to see that either they really want to disrupt, this type of mindset that the company usually has, or either they're already always looking for that innovation space. So I think what's interesting is that nowadays, when people really start to understand this background of leading 100-person orchestra in usually one or two rehearsals and aligning all those different people, different teams, different sectors, what we call different sections in the orchestra, to your vision, your understanding, your leadership, is something that, the high stakes of it and the, uncertainty, the stress, this type of situation really resonates with top leaders that sometimes finally understand that, listen, from the corporate world, we see things this way always. But when you step onto the stage and you have literally one shot because, the audience has paid quite a lot of money to see you and the orchestra will not invite you if you mess things up. So nowadays, because let's say corporate leaders have seen basically so many different types of workshops, leadership training, things like that, they are looking for something different. And this is exactly what we do at PhD because we combine that mindset, the non-verbal communication, the verbal one, the presence, the stress management and decision making. And we do that by of course, one-on-one coaching and personal meetings, but as well as in workshops where we actually bring musicians. We bring either a small ensemble, a quartet, quintet, or either a full orchestra, and then they really get their hands on trying to conduct. We actually, I show them the basics of conducting with music that they know, that you don't need any prior knowledge, and then they see that actually going on. So the input and the knowledge that they gain from that is something that they never would have thought could happen, but instantly it does because it's such an immersive experience.
Okay, that is amazing. And I'm curious, like, let's just say your quintet or your quartet can show up. Are you able to create a similar experience using the same principles without them present, but actually using the fundamentals of conducting? If so, like, what does that even look like?
Well, if they're there, it's one experience, and if they're not, what we usually do, if it's in these workshops, we have two main structures. The one is that you get the entire executive team to sing something. You really transform them into a group that sings Star Spangled Banner or whatever, like something that everyone knows, and then you put someone, the conductor for that instant, in front of them, and you immediately see how everyone is reacting to that energy and to that the body language, etc. And other areas that we usually tend to experience as well is to take the key, I call it like the 10 top baton leadership skills. So the tempo, the listening and reacting, things like that. So in that case, it's more of a lecture and a leadership workshop without the actual orchestral experience, let's call it, or choral if they sing.
Okay, that is so cool because I've never experienced anything like that before. And that's why I'm like, what does that feel like? Because when you walk into a meeting room, right, and you're expected to align everyone and create buy-in, that's another thing through nonverbal cues. Now I'm like, well. If you could offer one piece of advice to those who are stepping into a large room, they have to create buy-in and alignment right away through nonverbals, what piece of advice would you offer?
So I think, first of all, as I said before, it starts way before you enter the meeting. So the main two things is to really know what you're going to say and what you're going to do, and to actually rehearse it verbally in front of a mirror usually really helps. And to see, instantly you get a feeling of how you present yourself, just by standing in front of a mirror. And as musicians, for the past 20 years, I've been practicing in front of a mirror. You know, it's something that we do as musicians. It's something that we have to do to really understand how we show up. So I would do that. And when you enter the actual room, you have two things that you have to manage instantly. One is to really stay centered and focused on yourself and on your confidence, to really present your body language in an open situation, present yourself like this, and to keep engaging, whether it's eye contact, a smile, things like that, and just really go one by one and say good morning, good afternoon, like really maintain that connection. And the other thing, and this is something that I always have to do in front of an orchestra, and you can imagine, like in front of 100 people, you have to see who's with you, who's on the fence, and who's against you. So try to really like map that out instantly. Within the first 10 or 30 seconds, you can have that feel. And when you start speaking, you usually get that, that vibe. So usually what happens is sometimes the people that you feel that are not really with you, it divides into two groups. One who are really not with you. I mean, they don't like you, they don't like your story, they don't trust you. It's fine, and you have to win them over. You have to understand what type of personality is sitting there, what they want, and to see which of the things that you're saying really resonates with these people, and to go there. The other part is the people that are just pretending not to be with you. And that sometimes happens just because of their personality. They're usually like that. It doesn't have anything to do with you. So these are two categories, and you have to try and see what happens and what works for you, but to really map it out, to analyze it like instantly.
And that's a skill in itself. So after you create that alignment and that buy-in, how do you keep them engaged?
Okay, so well, of course, it depends on the actual task. But speaking as an orchestra conductor, what I usually aim to do is to really engage the leaders of the different sections instantly. So they are basically my right hand and my peers, because these are, I mean, for two main reasons. One is that their knowledge is, amazing, and they can only improve what I'm doing and my vision as a conductor, and sometimes even contradict what some of the things I say, but to like an extent that it actually improves what we're doing, because they know their players, so they know their teams, so they know what would work best for us as a group. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, to see like how I personally speak to each player when I can, to establish a connection, even if it's through this one person, because then the rest of the orchestra sees that, okay, she takes the time to really listen to this oboe player or flute player for their input about this specific solo. So that means she really takes into account our opinions. So these two ways usually really, really help.
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It makes me appreciate the art of everything more than I did before, because I was even chatting with my mom after I first met you. I was like, yeah, like I used to never really understand like the why the conductor was there. Like you see them wave their hand and all that other stuff. And but then after chatting with you, Roit, for the first time, I'm like, wow, like it takes a lot to make sure that someone just doesn't decide to go off and do their own thing in the middle of your vision. Right?
Exactly.
And so, based on the executives that you coach, what would you say is like a common theme that executives are working through and trying to overcome these days?
Well, I think there are a few common themes. One is communication. Another is stress management and the sense of being overwhelmed by constant demands. And the third I would say is usually, how can I maintain my strategic vision in spite of being bombarded by tasks, by things that happen constantly. So if I try to divide those into these three categories. I think that the communication part is usually what happens is people want things to get done, but what happens so many times is that there's a gap between what we say and what we think people understand. So this happens constantly, and therefore miscommunication and misalignment happens like every single day, and this takes up so much time and so much energy. And when you really understand how to convey your vision and to figure out that, your team actually understands what you really mean, not just what you thought they understood or what they think you meant. So this part is really crucial. And the second one is, I think leaders nowadays are really overwhelmed. We're dealing with so much information, constant messages, emails, things like that. It's just insane. Stress management here is a constant issue. So in that case, we usually try to prioritize to see what works, to see, how micromanagement from our end doesn't really benefit our vision. And we really have to delegate more, things like that. And the third part, just to see how we maintain our center, our strategic vision, and to really see how we can provide ourselves with the time to reflect on how we perform as leaders. I mean, take the time to see what works, what didn't work. So these main themes are usually like the constant thing that we deal with, for sure.
I appreciate you sharing all those different themes because I think back to just all the conversations I've ever had, whether it's through my podcast, through coaching, etc. And I realized that when you actually take a moment to communicate what you are noticing and then create space and ask the other individual. So, like, what was your perception of that? Right. And
Yeah.
then you reflect back on what they said, you said, that is the space that allows you to continue to identify gaps, whether it's within or externally, and then allows you to pivot accordingly. So I love that through those different things, you tied both of those pieces together and just showcases the importance of both. One last question I have for you before we wrap up our conversation is, what's one thing that's top of mind for you? So if an audience member or whoever wants to connect with you and they're like, I don't know where to start.
Well, I mean, first of all, I would really encourage them to check out my company website. If it's for coaching for corporate, then my BHC group consulting group website, it has like everything that we do there. And we also have so many resources, ebooks, assessment tools for communication. We have our blog, which is really, the space to provide executives with performance tips and things like that. I really love when people contact me directly on LinkedIn and through also my Instagram page, because I do everything on my own. I don't have like social media managers, because for me, this personal connection, either with my players, with, the executives I work with you, with everyone, I do everything by myself. It's a bit insane. I mean, at one point I would have to change that, but I do love when people reach out and, speak to me directly, because for me, conducting and coaching and doing keynotes, all these things are essentially about connecting everyone and making, the workplace a better place and the world essentially a better place.
I appreciate you sharing all that because and part of the reason why I love asking that question is because I think sometimes folks won't take the time to do research on who they're connecting with. And then they use almost like a spray and pray approach where it's like, hey, this is all about me, by the way. And then let me know if you want to learn more about me. And then part of you is like, I have all this shit going on. Like, unless if like there's some sort of alignment, like I probably may not have a capacity. But now you've given folks an intentional way to be like, hey, like this is exactly how you can. So I hope they actually take that into consideration. But
And for me, it's crucial that, everyone that I work with, it has to be always 100% match, because, if not, it doesn't make sense. I really want to give like my all to every single client and every single piece and every single performance.
passion is contagious, Rui. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your expertise. And to everyone else that's tuned into another episode, thank you for your time and attention. It means more to me than you'll know, and I can't wait to stay in touch with you on my next episode. Till then, stay safe.